welcome to all of you, and Happy New Year to those who I haven't met so far. My name is Uli Weinberg, and I used to run the School of Design Thinking at Potsdam, the D School, for 17 years. And 7 years ago, we started the Global Design Thinking Alliance as a alliance of a network, a global network of like-minded institutions who are all bringing design thinking to the people, to foremost students. And we have 39 members now in 25 countries in 5 continents. So the GDTA is a highly global institution, getting new members like every month. And I'm really happy about that. And every month we do our monthly spotlight session where we invite a special guest, sometimes from the inner circle of the GDTA, but sometimes like today, also from the outside, to give us some insights about their work and their relation to design thinking. And I'm really happy that we have our special guest today here from Budapest live, Adam Somlai-Fischer, the co-founder of Prezi and the CTO and the person at Prezi right now who is driving AI into that system. And actually, to be honest, I'm really, really happy that we could do this again. I was one of in the first, when you started building Prezi lots of years ago. I got in touch with Prezi through the D School Stanford. It was actually George Campbell, the executive director of the D School Stanford. I was there and he showed me something. He was saying, I found a very interesting presentation program and it's called Prezi. And so I was immediately blown away because on one hand, it was the first time that you could do a presentation collaboratively. So there was no other presentation tool allowing that. And the other, what I liked most was there is just a blank page and you can do anything what you want on that page. And it brings you into this kind of nonlinear thinking mode, which I still appreciate. And from that time on, I'm still constantly using Prezi. And so I was very happy last year to meet you again in Budapest and have a coffee and talk about the AI stuff. And so I'm really happy that you are here now. I think you have been to Potsdam lots of years ago to share your
like 10 years ago or so, yes.
I don't remember, it was more than 10 years ago, but so I'm really happy now that you're here sharing with us your experiences and also give us a little insight in what you're doing now with AI at Prezi. So please give a warm hand of welcome to Adam Somlai-Fischer. Yeah, stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Uli. Thanks for having me and everybody joining. Thank you for coming and for your attention on your screen to this story. So I'm Adam. I co-founded Prezi. You will see I wrote it for my personal needs many years ago. And I think it has very deep connections to design thinking. I hope you will see that as the story unfolds. But I will share a little bit like, where these things come from, where I come from. That is partly a critical take on technology, not just like super optimistic, but also trying to make good use of it, and how this passion as a professional really that uses visual thinking a lot led me to actually make a product with others. It could be an inspiring journey for others as well. And how that journey, the thread became that I got much more obsessed and interested in understanding spatial storytelling, which is at the heart of Prezi. And then how AI is really unlocking a lot of amazing things for us. And I even prepared some questions because I'm curious of what you guys think about some critical issues that is, might relate to visual and design thinking today. But then we will have a QA so we can discuss. So I'm co-founder. I'm not CTO, just sorry that I didn't. I know you mentioned it before and I forgot to respond. I'm very technical. I do innovation at Prezi, but many years ago I decided not to manage people. So I mostly work on innovation and tech and things in our company. But My background is actually in art and architecture. It's, very, very visual background. And like very early on, the thing that I was interested in, and it's a bit of a funny twist in fate, was that I just felt that people spend too much time in front of screens. And I love visual thinking, but it's also a very physical thing for me. Like, take a walk to think. I love that. Or, go on a train ride to get fresh ideas. So I started building things even as a student, like gluing things on screens, kind of breaking away from that magnetic, exciting, but like sticky world of digital media. Built a lot of pixels that are made of plastic, and kind of led me to become more of an electronic artist or an interactive artist than an architect, even though that's my background in education. And then really got interested. I mean, it's all related. Like, we build systems that can capture how Wi-Fi actually looks like, and build these devices, and then travel the world, taking pictures of Wi-Fi in different museums. This is actually in Berlin at the Haus der Kultur der Welt, or maybe das. I always forget that. But that's kind of my background, and soldering tens and thousands of toys to build these big tangible interactive spaces for architecture biennale in Venice. And that is still with me. So I still do these kind of things partly. And like this spring, we're gonna have an exhibition with my family, who's also very much into this thing at the architecture biennale in Venice. But basically what happened is that as I did these things, I needed a way to talk about them at conferences, at schools, art schools, design schools, etc. And being quite good with computers, it never even occurred to me to just, I don't know, buy or steal PowerPoint. I just wrote a little tool for my own needs to be able to present like I'm doing now, because it also felt more natural. Like, sometimes when you have a lot of things you're working on, it's hard to find the thread through it. But if you put it in front of you, like a visual thinker, things start to make sense. You move things around. Of course, you guys know really well how this works in like whiteboarding, etc. But basically, this led into this process that I started to do presentations like this. I mean, live. It was before the remote and Zoom and etc. era. And people started to ask more about my presentation tool than they asked about the projects, which was good and bad at the same time. So this kind of led into this, my interest of how can I combine storytelling and space. Like, I think this is a very interesting picture from, I think, 2002 or 3, where we did a conference in Helsinki, or participated, and with other artists. Basically, we took a very long cable on a projector, and then we asked the audience to follow us and presented different parts of the story at different parts of this cave-like building, on the ceiling and the corner, and somehow connected information to location. And this really inspired me that maybe this is a very magical thing, because then when you want to remember it, it's not just the first or the second slide, but you can say, oh, can you talk more about the project that was in the left corner? Like, information, story, and physical location and space somehow get mingled into one experience. And yeah, this was like, one of the early versions of Prezi that I did for myself that I used back then. And then I met my co-founders and some amazing people. And basically, during this many years, it became Prezi, which is Prezi.com. It's a product you guys can use today. We're about 3 billion views and 150 million users, and a 300 people company. Jim is the CEO today, and we had Peters here. I think, Uli, you met some of them. We work with some amazing scientists, etc. So it's a lot of fun. And obviously, the side effect of building a product is that, yeah, we had a very nice office. We actually, I mean, we gave back some of these spaces now because we also gone remote. But Prezi really, like a decade ago, it really ticked. Like when, Uli, you saw it. For example, in the US, it was almost in all the schools suddenly. Mostly because of the live collaboration you mentioned, but also it was fun to use. This is something that in our user interviews, it was a repeated comment that When I do PowerPoint, I don't listen to music, but when I do Prezi, it's like a journey, it's more fun. And I fell in love with this notion that thinking and working can be fun and it helps you to be smarter. So that's still at the core of what we do. Now, I think one thing is important to mention here, and I mean, this is super public. This is just a Google Trend search on Prezi. And whenever I travel, I still get this. Like this very nice barista in New York told me when he saw my Prezi sticker that I got him through college. So there is some of us who really need visual tools to be actually even functional. And for us, these kind of tools, and now there are many more like, Miro and Mural and many others. Back then it was mostly just Prezi. That really helps us. And we did have something that I want to share here that, when it was new, everybody wanted to do Prezi. Then a lot of people said it's actually hard because they just wanted a very cool presentation. They weren't really interested into visual thinking, or they didn't have the drive. They just liked that it's new. And then it kind of stabilized, I don't know, like 8 years ago. And I always look for some like comparison how known or how search Prezi is. And the red line here is Wasabi. So today on the planet, as many people search for Wasabi as they search for Prezi. And I'm actually happy with that too. That's a good life goal. But you will see there is actually something very interesting happening now that might, even help those who just wanted the cool results but didn't enjoy the process of building visual stories and spatial stories. Now, a little bit, continue my thread. What do I mean with spatial storytelling? And so a lot of people use Prezi. Some just enjoy a topic they work on and they love building these big maps. And some of our users, it's amazing how complex and large maps they can build in Prezi. And we have a very, refined tech engine that supports all the zooms and everything. Some of them just want to engage their audiences. They are not so much, like the teachers, it's very common, and some just want to stand out because it's different. But this combination is what drove the business. Now, if I want to say a few words about the actual idea and the format, some of this will be obvious, but I think some of it not. So clearly that, at least to me, when I wrote my mini version, this idea that I have to slice up my story into slides and I don't see them at the same time when I talk, I always thought that's extremely stressful because then I have to prepare and memorize. With Prezi, I can always just see the whole map and it feels much more human and natural and kind of see the relations. Maybe that's very obvious when you come from visual thinking and whiteboards, but for a lot of users, this is where a lot of people met with this concept because presentations are very common around the globe. Obviously, the thing I mentioned about spatial visual memory, for example, many of us, when I ask you to tell me your PIN, but I won't because it's secret, but you can't say the number, you can probably draw the shape on your phone or on the keypad, etc. So this kind of works. Now, there are some more things that are not that well known. Like all these zooms that we do in Prezi, a lot of people associate Prezi with Zoom. This is actually for simplicity, for focus. A lot of people have to present a lot of information. It's just sometimes common that even though presentation experts say, oh, you should only say one word and a nice picture. But the reality is, for us and for many others, it's just a lot of information that has to be shared so people are on the same page and can talk about this. And it can really kill attention. And obviously with Zoom, I can just go to a detail and I can focus the attention of a whole group. And there is some theory that I really like. There is George Miller, who was one of the founders of cognitive psychology. They did some studies many, many years ago that they found that most humans cannot keep in their mind more than 7 things at a time if it's all new information. And this is very interesting. It is concept or sounds or colors. It is all our senses are limited to this. Now, I'm not saying that you can't remember more than 7 things, but if you get it at the same time as new information, that's kind of our limit, 7 plus minus 2. And, like a long bullet list, it just becomes unfunctional. And this is the whole point of all this zooming, that they can focus at the same place together. Of course, it's very cinematic and a lot of people love that. But there's this other notion that I enjoy, that other thing that I always found frustrating when I sometimes had to do slideshows, that I prepared yesterday, I was thinking what are the things that will resonate with the audience, and they don't, and there's nothing I can do because I just can go next slide, and you're kind of chained to that earlier planning of what you believe the people will do. And what I always do with Prezi, and this is where it really came from, that it's very non-linear, like you mentioned, Oli, that I can resonate to the audience. And the format, like why I say spatial, it's still, of course, flat and we're just zooming, but there's a reason to it. I also did 3D animations many years ago, and if any of you did 3D animations, you guys know that there are like thousands and thousands of buttons and settings. And just to explain the spatial, jaw, speech, move, I mean, it's a very complex thing to do actual spatial modeling and storytelling. So this very simplified version we have, where we have a canvas and we zoom on it, it requires from people who want to speak Prezi only to understand this, that you can make things large or small and you can move them. And that's just so much easier. So this is a sweet spot between a spatial experience. And we do some things like now I overlaid my Prezi on in front of me on a camera, but sometimes we have like a parallax background to kind of create a much more spatial thing to it. But the other thing that happens often is that, which is again the spatial visual storytelling aspect, and I will show some examples, that is very key for the way I think Prezi's function, is the metaphor concept. So if you make a presentation about apes, of course you can put a picture of apes and you can zoom to the ears and it's very fun, but most presentations are abstract. Still, most presentations would benefit if they were more visual. So what good Prezis do is they find some kind of a scene or a metaphor, an image, an illustration that can carry some or most of the story, and it will make it much more pleasant and memorable, really like a journey in a location or around an object. I show you some examples. And then this becomes a story when you link it together. So for example, I mean, this is one of my favorites. This is a very old, it's actually not so old. This was done for National Geographic a few years back, and it's a timeline of the elephant population in Africa. And we kind of go through this timeline, and you get curious. It's kind of bending, and there is some. And in the end, we zoom out and we see that we've been traveling alongside this task. So it's kind of metaphorical, but not fully. It has a surprise. This is something I did to kind of talk about this concept. Some, like right now I'm explaining something, so I'm just traveling on a map, but often we use this zoom to surprise things. So it's not fully like a whiteboard, because the element of surprise, if you zoom back and you show things that were not clear before, but you suddenly understand that there is a different context that you thought there would be, that is very clearly something that storytellers do. Like very few books start by revealing everything that will happen, which is common for some basic presentations. This is my table of contents, but for visual storytelling, you also want to keep the element of surprise. Now, what I said before is that in the middle, that with our product, it's all well and exciting, but a lot of people found it hard. And I have to say that one of my experiences with Prezi is that, of course, I have friends and friends of friends, and they recommend it, and it often comes back that I tried it when it was hard. And if the friends find it important, then they introduce me. And I never had a single time when I actually met somebody and I did a Prezi for them and I didn't love it. So, and it's not just me. Like there are some people who intuitively enjoy using space to come up with stories, or even to have somebody else's story rephrased around something physical, something spatial, something visual. And luckily, what is happening in the last 2 years, more or less, is that we understood that we can teach these concepts to language models, because I can talk about them, then I understand them. If I understand them, I can describe them. If I can describe them, I can teach them to language models. And then what language models do, and this is what we do with AI nowadays, is they take these concepts and they then take your presentation needs, or like you put in your outline or the goals or whatever it is, and then using my knowledge, which you don't see, it's called prompt engineering, like, behind the scenes, the language model actually can suggest layouts, metaphors, visual ideas that make sense for that story. If I was there almost, or one of the many other Prezi designers who enjoy doing this. So for us, this is a very big unlock, that we can connect a certain knowledge to a very large demand of people who would love to, tell visual stories, spatial stories, but they focus on their, content, not the art of storytelling. So this is a process that is happening now, and of course, also very happy to share a bit more if anybody's interested on how you do this and what are the technicalities. I think the whole world is learning how to be a smart user of the possibilities that primarily large language models bring us. And at the same time, my background is this. I always felt that technology, it's a blessing and a curse. It's obviously, I think there is a screen pandemic, like a lot of kids just can't get their face off their phones, and it's bad. I'm very proud that our son uses a dumb phone. He doesn't want a smartphone. He's old enough, he could have, but he thinks it's not good for friendships and social connections. I think he's right. So there's definitely same things with AI and social media. So I thought I will ask some questions that are I don't know the answers to, and maybe in the Q&A I would even love to hear opinions of what you guys think. So here are three. One is right away on visual thinking. So, and I put for illustration Marshall McLuhan here, who's been championing these concepts that technologies have defined our thinking, and without printing press we don't have nation states, etc. So I'm not naive. I know that I need technologies. Even for visual thinking, I needed the invention of pencil and paper. Without that, I can push stones around, but only for so much. So I'm just curious if any of you have been thinking or have had good experience of or dreaming about having large language models or AI tools accompany you in design thinking. I know there are tools, but they mostly create like templates and Prezi does presentations. So you can ideate with AI today, in my experience, only through words. And I'm just curious of what your experience is or dreams or anything specific about having that visual collaboration as if you were there in a room with somebody on a whiteboard and you did that thing together. Would it be good? Would it be bad? Because we should still do those together, maybe, and not rely, on AI for everything. And a second, especially like now that I'm quite deep in tech and quite deep in AI, I am worried about. So I mean, our world should be much more fair than today. I think there is a lot of things that need to be much better, and still, our knowledge society, which means that. If you study, you can have a decent life. It's not your parents' wealth in theory that defines you. It's your work today, more or less. But this might be in somewhat of a danger because knowledge becomes cheap and accessible to the very expert level, and there already is. So I don't know what that means. I'm just curious if anybody has any thinking, good or bad feelings about this. I do. I don't know. I'm partly happy. Like the illustration here is from the Large Hadron Collider. Clearly, complex scientific problems need these tools to be solved. Like we are not smart enough for some of the problems we cause, to work with our planet and planetary scale problems. At the same time, yeah, I don't know. And my last question is, and this is a picture of a extremely comfortable, lazy chair where you don't even have to stand up. You press a button that puts you in a standing position. Is that sometimes, like, I definitely noticed, I don't know if you are worried for your intellect or you're happy that you get a companion. Sometimes I love it that I can just ask anything and I learn everything every day. And my grammar got really sloppy because I know that I can just type almost as bad as possible and AI will understand. So I started to do the same with people. And I don't know, I'm a bit concerned for my own intellect and, becoming maybe too lazy to think because well, this tool can think for me, then why should I? It's tiring. So this is what I thought I bring, and I would love to enjoy a Q&A with you, and I'm looking for your moderation, Uli. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam. Big applause. And I would like to ask all of you who are here today joining our session, switch on if you like, and if your line is stable enough, switch on your video, and if you want to say something, raise your hand, either visually or digitally. We'll try to follow. And then there is time for questions now for Adam. And do I see? There's one already in the chat. The question to the speaker: are you integrating AI? It has prompt-based or menu-based generation to address the segment which you mentioned, people who want to tell a visual story presentation but don't want to do too much work. That is, I can answer that question with yes, but you can answer that question more precisely.
I would prefer to say kind of or partly no. It's not the amount of work. Like people who present and come to Prezi, it's already an extra step. They really care about their success and the presentation, so they don't mind work. It's just they lack these visual skills, so it becomes frustrating. So they can work on their ideas, and the AI tool is helping them to get more visual. That's kind of the idea. I can also, if you want, continue with the chat.
Yeah, there's Celine Gosen. I'm not Zaina Gosen.
Zaina, yes. Hi, how are you? We met earlier today with Dr. Halim. How are you?
Yeah,
From Lebanon.
Hi, Zaina.
Hi, how are you? Very interesting lecture. Thank you very much for that. I have a question, just in general, because I teach at a university. And when we integrate design thinking to students, they're usually like, oh, so you want us to, sit back and think? I could do it so much faster, just asking an AI bot. And so we try to encourage them to sit back and actually brainstorm and actually think about their solution instead of think about the process rather than the end result, which is the solution. So I was just wondering if, because you mentioned something about your kids as well, not using a smartphone, if you have like any advice on how to integrate all of this into sort of like a classroom, especially at university level and senior level, brainstorming wise. So I was just interested in that.
Yeah, I love what I love your position, like not to become lazy. Like then what's the point of education?
Exactly.
Life, I do know that. So at the same time, I definitely like there is a few things here that partly some people even call this language elitism, and some not only for non-native speakers, but not everybody is so good at language versus other intuition, visuals, etc. And for me, it helps that I have a tool that is very proficient, so it can bridge things. But I think even more interesting, we do use AI even at our family studies at home. I'm just very clearly instructing it not to solve things, but to question.
Right.
And then it does it. So I think, if there's people around you, you don't need it. I think people is always better. But maybe you don't have somebody there who's good at physics, and then you can actually have a companion, so it can solve some of the things. And that's at least my strategy now, to kind of tame it, but then use it well when there's an expertise that we don't have at hand. But we always prefer humans for now.
Very true. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is another question from Anirban Bhattacharya from India. He was introduced to Prezi 2013, but he had problems to bring it, and he was blown away by it, but he loved it, but he was struggled to take to corporate clients. And there actually, Anirban is also not an pure academic institution. So my question or his question was, how do you fight Microsoft?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a recurring thing. Like, so luckily, I mean, this was harder in the early times. We were like very cloud, and the whole cloud was like non-business. But things have changed. So I mean, Prezi is used in all the Fortune 500, etc. So it's not really such a big issue. It's I mean, part of it is obviously if people have a legacy and a lot of documentation, and they might have policies, so that can change things. And also, one of the things, it relates to what I said, that people with some kind of visual drive or design thinking drive, they are drawn to this. They get excited. And in a company, you kind of have to drag your colleagues along with you, because it's always teamwork. Sometimes it works, sometimes they don't want this. So, that's another thing where I think AI tools will help us bridge between those who really want this, but we can still interface with those who just want like the results and not the process.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me to another question. So when I talked about your presentation, after we knew that you will give a presentation here at our Spotlight, I was asking people, do you know Prezi? And most of them were reacting, yes, I know Prezi. Isn't that the thing which that is the presentation tool which made me dizzy?
Yeah.
So, and I think there was a reaction by a lot of people because they were overusing the thing which you can turn everything, you can move it around, and I have seen presentations which really made me dizzy.
Yes.
And I try to use it very subtle and the similar as you. And maybe it is interesting also to the auditorium here. You were using Prezi in front of yourself right now. You're sitting behind it and you're using it like, for you it's a normal thing, but to explain how you are using that and what kind of tool it is what you're using right now, because that is probably not familiar to all of us.
Yeah. So to the first point, this is very true. And I mean, I have to admit that, I mean, so as I said, I come from like art, and when first we did Prezi, I thought that everybody would just understand it, that like if something is important, make it bigger, don't rotate too much, it becomes silly, only make movement when it makes sense for the story. And like when for example, you mentioned that it was just a blank canvas. The only text in the middle said, click anywhere and add an idea. And I loved it too. It was like so liberating. And we learned that for most people, this is frightening. There's no help, no support, no templates. So we kind of learned this over the years. And a funny detail, we even hid the rotation tool after a while, because people in front of their small laptops, they thought it's all funny, so they made everything spinning. And when it was blown up to the large screen, when they presented, people got like really dizzy from it. We even changed the mathematic that even if you rotate in Prezi, we never show the center of the rotation with the camera. There's some tricks, because then it makes you less dizzy when you don't see like the spinning thing. It's kind of like a waving motion every time. And right now, so I'm just using Prezi.com, and there is free. It comes with the whole experience. It's called Prezi Video, which is an app which I can plug into any video conferencing tool like Zoom and the others. It just shows up as a camera. I choose Prezi camera, and in front of me, I just see a Prezi. I can click and zoom, and you guys see I see the same. So this is why I can point at things, because it becomes like this augmented mirror, if you like, which I think is very good for storytelling. And I can even make videos of this and send it to my students. So we actually did this just before the pandemic, and that was a lucky move. We didn't, of course, know of the pandemic, but with all the remote work, this very engaging remote presentation tool became very popular.
Mm-hmm. There's another question in the chat here. Do you have to fight Microsoft, or could a version of Prezi become like an add-on app integrated with PowerPoint and Office?
So we don't need to fight. I know they have been always looking at us, and we inspire them for some of their features, but it's also partly a different market. Most of the PowerPoints in the world, they are like documentations in big companies. Just you have to hand in a 200-page slide deck with just that we have it in our. So it's not really visual storytelling, not for these occasions. And one of the things that is happening now, again, the large language models are very good at translating from formats to formats. So that's like right now you can plug into a slideshow when you start a Prezi and it will be actually meaningfully understood and converted and changed. So it's not, and I think, to the second question, so we do Prezi because we love it. And luckily we can live from it. Some people, the Prezi business model is a very simple idea. You can use it for free if your presentations become public. So others can get inspiration from it, etc. If you have secrets, then you need to pay a little. And this very simple idea, we started like this like 15 years ago, very nicely segmented business users from non-business users around the world instantly. So we don't have to sell to Microsoft to become a plugin, right? I don't know. And we just try to do what's best for our users and us. And being independent has been very rewarding.
Yeah, talking about Microsoft is one thing. 2 months ago, we had the founder of Miro as a speaker here. I told you about it.
Yes.
We met right after it, I think. And so, and you told me that he visited you once several years ago. Maybe. So what do you see is the biggest difference between your approach and what Miro is doing?
Yeah, I love what they do. It's super inspiring. It's a very good product. And I even back then we kind of understood. So he was interested in whiteboarding, which is in many ways closer to visual thinking, etc. And we were much more interested in this spatial storytelling, like the more cinematic aspect. So like Miro is very efficient to quickly drop a whiteboard and copy paste document support. Everything is very optimized for that. And the motion and the zoom it can do is very limited because it has to stay very compatible with all the formats. Our systems are optimized for what users have seen over camera or live, very, very cinematic things that are very easy to create. So it's just there's a lot of relations. We're both on an open canvas, both are collaborative. So, and I personally use Prezi as a whiteboard. I always have, but that's not the main focus, and it's not the main use case that people come to Prezi for. And there's overlaps clearly. You can do Prezi-like things in Miro and Miro-like things in Prezi. And when you do the really, really good things in both, then they don't overlap anymore.
There is a question Joe Murphy is asking. You mentioned that Prezi is doing research and cognitive psychology and spatial memory. What kind of research have you been doing, and how do things like situated or extended cognition influence the product, and also how the Prezi team works together? So it's an interesting question on both the product and your team activities. How do you run the 300 people?
Yes. So some of this that highly relates to the question we did like double-blind studies actually together with Harvard many years ago, and then we tried to measure, and I don't remember the number, but it was nice, like double-digit number improvement over slideshows for memorization. So there is a clear, measurable impact of OK design Prezi and OK design slideshow just because of the spatial memory, and we could kind of show that. Most of the reason, and obviously we did this so we can show it to the world, like, hey guys, this is working. It's not just me talking. Most of the research we do is mostly on this concept of how we can bring visual storytelling, which we know works, to more people. So it's about making it more simple, accessible, modern, like bring it over Zoom, what you see, etc. So it's a lot of like product research, not cognitive science research. And the reference there was that at the same time, we just try to be very, it's very important for me that whatever I spend my life on is real. So, trust science, build your facts based on that, and then, iterate and innovate to product experiences that make you more creative, your stories become more engaging, your work is fun. These are the things that I could say to this question.
Joseph,
I had a question. It just occurred to me because I work at the Helmut Schmidt University, and we're running actually a wargaming center, which is kind of funny. So what does that have to do with design thinking? And one of the things I actually thought, and I was kind of curious if you had any experience with that, is Prezi seems predestined for those giant military boards where people draw those incredibly complicated diagrams. And Prezi actually seems like one of those, almost a perfect tool for understanding how different things fit together, because you can zoom in, you can move around, and yet I've never seen it used. So I
Yeah,
just find
I
that
don't
funny.
have that reference. I never been to a military boardroom thing, so I don't fully know. I mean, Prezi is used for what another reference very similar. So Prezi is used in. I mean, we're incorporated in the US now. We very early on we founded in Budapest, but we moved to San Francisco, the company and a lot of the team. So one of the very early partners, and still today, is this. I forgot the name, but the sport where it's rugby in English. It's football. Oh, American football, where they do the same drawings. So they use Prezi to explain them and show them even sometimes on TV. So there is some overlaps there.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And a lot of educators. So look, there is being really good on a whiteboard to tell something complicated. A lot of good educators are very good at that. That's what they do every day. And so this is why Prezi also resonated a lot in education, because they intrinsically knew that this is great to explain relations, topics, etc.
And what's funny is it fits actually. I don't want to go too far on this, but it fits very well with the narrative-led approach, from sort of a new NATO approach to warfare, and looking at war as a narrative, right? It's actually being following a certain storyline and moving.
Mm-hmm.
And it just occurred to me that is actually Prezi is a design that actually allows that to be better illustrated than the PowerPoint slides that most of the officers are struggling through with where they're packing way too much information into them.
Yeah, so I mean, I know military is a huge presenter. I don't have experience. I didn't even have training, so I don't know. But I heard that one challenge, though, of course, is that the culture is often very strict. Like you have to do things the way you're told. And Prezi always starts in organizations by some underdogs. So maybe that's why it's not that compatible. But I mean, if you have the power and you can show, please try. I think it will be fun to see.
I think I will.
Let's experiment on that.
Yeah. There's a question on VR and AR. And
Yeah.
and I mean, if I may quickly on that.
Yeah.
There is look, I mean, this is me doing some hand-driven visual storytelling, which is very similar to what I'm doing now. And we had a TED talk on this, etc. Now, there is something with VR and AR that is very important to me. So I do believe that, I mean, it became kind of a overhyped thing because of Facebook, and now people think it's boring. And so I definitely don't think these big headsets are something that people love. I don't love. I don't use them. And I also think that today's tech is not there, but if you look at the progression of screens, how they used to be in big theaters, then in homes, in television sets, now in their mobile phones. So, it's not the screen that matters, it's that augmented experience that you can have, be somewhere else, talk to somebody. So this is clearly, if you don't have to hold it in my hand, if it's just going to float in front of me, this will happen. But it hasn't happened yet. All this tech is extremely cumbersome. And this is why we did this product. To me, this is, it runs on a basic laptop. Anybody can use it. Of course, it's remote, so you only see these augmented stories in front of me if you're remote, but that's a reality of the world today. So with Prezi, we also try to make sure that whatever we do and come up with is a lot of people can use it. So we're not limited to some like super edgy geeky tech. It has to run on student laptops. That's one of our rules, which is not the fastest. And it does. Yeah.
There's another question from Linda. How can we use AI tools to collaborate without the penalty of our information becoming public and copied? And she has had an experience with a webinar last evening and a deep discussion about copyrights. How do you solve that problem with?
So I think most models today, if you use them for free, your usage is being used. but you just have to read their terms. I don't know, but if you pay for the models, then they don't use this to train the models. So for example, in Prezi, like we of course pay for the models, so this doesn't, like whatever you do in Prezi won't get stored in the OpenAIs or the other providers' databases to train the models on. But so basically the first answer is if you actually check the data, as many of these tools don't use your discussions, but some do, and I think it's, you know, in also being like coming from creative professions myself, I am also concerned that very few people will own a lot of the knowledge and skills that used to belong to super inspiring professions like illustrators, and suddenly it's all kind of taken. And now you have to pay a company and its investors, and you won't really hire illustrators anymore to do like day-to-day jobs. So it's a very, very tough issue, and I think it's right to be very concerned. And I think it's just very hard to. I don't think anybody has a good answer yet what to do. And if you want to be really concerned, I think a lot of people believe that most jobs that can be done on a computer will be done much cheaper and much easier very soon by some AI services. But then, of course, because it's a global phenomenon, we will have to solve it as a society. So it's not a single person losing a job. And then people talk a lot about basic income and all these things. So this takes us very far. But just read the terms. If you don't want to get your data shared, we can uncheck it also on most of the tools for today. But that won't help the illustrators.
Yeah. There's a relating question from Wael. I hope I pronounce your name right. He's asking about what you were saying about is trying to discourage students from using AI really wise or even productive, or is it better to encourage them to use AI in a smart way as a tool and extension to their known knowledge and thinking capacities, and not
Yes.
a substitute to their intellect? Imagine discouraging finance professionals from using Excel so that they maintain their mental math abilities, or discouraging phone users from using contacts apps so that they can memorize the many phone numbers. So I think that is one of the challenging questions we are facing right now. Yeah.
And I mean, of course, you're right. I think none of us suggested to kind of block these tools, but the other side is also true that many of the tasks that you do as students today, they are simulated work, so you can become smarter. And you can just ask the AI do it for you today. Maybe you call it cheating. I don't know. Maybe the rules don't say it's cheating, so nobody calls it cheating, but then you don't study and don't learn. I'm not saying it to disregard AI. We are integrating it. I'm using it every day. I code so much nowadays with AI. It's crazy. But you just have to, I think you have to have the students. So I think part of it, make sure it's not a secret. So if people use AI tools, they should credit them, maybe even share prompts, etc. So it's known. It's like a source, right? And the second, I think you do have to help and create, because if it ends up too much being saving that part of the work that you meant to practice, then I think you do a disservice. But if it helps you become better and you learn together, then it's fantastic. And this is what I'm trying to do today also with my kids. So it's also very personal. But it's not black and white and not easy at all.
And well, you are raising your hand. Do I pronounce your name right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's correct. That's well. So I'm just gonna tell you a story with from a student. So the students were doing an entrepreneurial simulation, and at one point, they had to go to a VC and get funding and so on. And they were supposed to make like a reflections report. So apparently, one student went to AI, to Copilot or whatever, and asked them to write the report for them. And and then AI responded and said, I don't really know the details, and probably the VCs did that, and she just ended up copying what the AI. So it was obvious, like that, and really she should have like failed the course because of academic integrity and so on. But I just used these kind of examples, like there are ways actually to I think,
Yeah.
to actually design the assignments so that there is a part that they do, parts like, ask AI this and then evaluate that, and then maybe go to even to another model and do it. So it becomes almost, it's part of the assignment that they say what they did. So
Yes.
there is no hiding, like I just think that just like, when Excel came along and so on, we just need to change the sort of assignments and start focusing more on more ambitious goals, and just leave the sort of, after obviously they learn how to multiply and, and do all these kind of things, is that now they need to do other things, I think.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think you 100%. But my funny story there, when I studied architecture, that's when computer-aided design became, CAD became popular. I still had to study to make everything on ink and paper. There is no undo, it's horrible, because my teachers didn't know computers, so they forced us. And architecture didn't become worse because we got computers. So there's a lot of examples when, all these things are good. And I think what you say is super key. Just make this a part of the task, but make it, disclose it and make it public and share the process. I think even ideating with AI is very effective. If you give good enough context, you get a lot of creative feeling connotations that you can take back to your work. You just shouldn't hide it, that this was part of my process, I believe.
Mhm.
Maybe
Joseph.
So
to
nice to
continue.
talk about these interesting things. I really enjoy it. Thank you. Just
I didn't want to cut in, but I thought I had a similar topic. I'm actually one of the more AI friendly people who teach at the university, because I was teaching some basic courses on techniques of academic writing, which I personally don't like, because I learned over the years to essentially structure my writing in such a way that I could write on any topic, which is very similar to what an AI does. However, I then found that when I was working in an academic career, it didn't really help me create a thesis, like really creating a doctoral thesis, and it didn't really help me become, in terms of finding originality in the work. And it also didn't really help me in my career of writing policy memos or writing, reports for work, because the structure was totally different. So we still teach this though to students, and they're using AI, a lot. And so I kind of thought about what is the purpose of a university, and in German you would say Wissensvermittlung und Wissensvermehrung, so the increase of knowledge and the transfer of knowledge to students. And then I was thinking is what, AI sort of confronts us with, whether are we doing that really? One example was a student, are we doing that without the, regardless of the AI, are we actually doing that? Because I had one student say, the reading was too hard, I didn't do it. And then I said, well, you better put it into an AI and get a summary that you understand and tell me what was in it before you just don't do it. So for me, the added value of AI was pretty clear, and I was, of course, sort of pushing in the harder direction, and that is namely within the institution to say, how do we do how to what's the word, to change the processes to really focus on the transfer and the transfer and increase of knowledge. So I think AI sort of puts us in a dilemma to really reflect on that. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because I don't see it necessarily as a bad thing or something to be restricted, but really it forces us to take the difficult task of understanding, okay, what are we really following our own goals, and then to refocus on that. So I kind of just wanted to throw that as a bone.
Yeah, thank you, Zeph. There's a nice comment from Christine, if you don't mind, just if I reflect on it, that thank you, Christine, for saying that Prezi reminds you of bringing galaxies together to find solutions for cultural clash or when for different groups. And this really resonates with me. One of the first templates we ever had, it was called multiple perspectives. And you could put your main topic in the center, and then you had to find 3-4 points of views to talk about it, and also the camera turn so you could see it from that angle. And I think for a lot of us, like visual thinkers, this is quite innate that we always feel that there are multiple views on the same topic. Yeah.
Any other question? Because I just hear the church bells ringing here, which is always an indicator that the 1 hour is over, which means our official part is over. But if there is a question from your side left over, if not, we got a lot of thank you notes here. And I would actually thank you, Adam, again, very much for your time and for sharing your ideas. And it is so interesting that we started with a presentation tool somehow, yeah, ending up with an intense discussion about how AI is,
Yes.
what AI is doing to us as humans, and also how it changes the way of education. And this is for sure a topic we will work on in the future, and we have to talk about in the future. So I'm back to Prezi actually. I'm using it. I also encourage my son to use it in school, because the school is not really doing too much with that kind of tools, and also AI is a little tough how they handle it, but I think using Prezi makes it probably easier also to deal with AI in a very easy-going way, because in your latest versions, you just write a prompt about what you want to show, and then it does the first preview of your presentation in a very, very powerful way, and it gives you already a line. So thank you very much. A big applause again to Adam. Thanks for Raika in the back for arranging everything and preparing it. And we are looking forward to our next presentation, which will be in in 4 weeks from now. And it is not totally decided yet, but it will be there will be a member from the GDTA, hopefully from Canada. We are trying to arrange that right now to talk about their activities and their current research, what they're doing with their students. And so thanks a lot to all of you. Check out the website. For those who want to review it in a few days from now, we'll also put the recording on the gdta.org website. And for those of you who are running institutions or being part of institutions who are dealing with design thinking and who are not yet members of the GDTA, please approach us. There's an info button at the website as well. And yeah, thanks to Raika for putting that here in the chat as well. So I wish you all a nice day, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are on the planet. It is always a pleasure to see so many people from from all regions of the world. And thanks to Adam, and greetings to the team in Budapest. You have a great location there. You have a great product to work on.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the next versions. And we keep in touch with you. Thank you very much, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.